Okay. So today's topic is something that I've always enjoyed and been pretty much fascinated by. These objects that you might call a mix of uh, like trash art, or sometimes they can also be something called steampunk. So both are close, but they're not the same. So steampunk, we are going to do that at some point also. It's when you take objects that are very crafted and from the past, like industrial age crafting of engineering objects, and then put them in a modern context. Like if we were to use a cell phone, but the cell phone is like the handle of a very ornate telephone, but it is a cell phone. Or then you have that becomes also like a radio. So you might have used the dials for something else, and from that very ornate handle, you could pull out an antenna. So modern technology mixed with something that is very, very vintage. What we're doing today, though, is literally just trash art. So, taking stuff from trash and just soldering it all together and making something else out of it. In this case, making humanoid robot like creatures. So, there are, before I forget, there are a couple of movies that you should watch. One is just called Robots, it's an old Disney movie, and it's an extremely underrated movie. This is one in which very creative. They have created a world of robots, and everything is just mechanics in play. So you can watch that. And the other one is Hugo. So this was again very creative movie. The storyline was also reasonably
Was
interesting.
nice. Yeah.
Visually, it's like cake. It's like layer cake. There's so much happening. So definitely try watching these and see how they have used uh, artistically used mechanics for representation.
Like Beauty and the Beast, right? You had all these teapots and chairs
Correct.
and
Yeah. So that is what you would call anthropomorphization of objects. And in this case, so they're all very close to each other. There's something in which we see faces, and then you convert that object into a face. So like the teacup, the kettle. So there, even this is in the same vein. You take something that we recognize as a nose, and you convert that into an object. So I want to start off with first just an object that could simulate a potential for some kind of pareidolia. Like when you look at this fire hydrant, you can easily visualize a face if you want to. The top looks like a hat. There is one, I don't know, something on the right that could be nose, and these two things could be ears or eyes or whatever. And then we have something like this, which is, if we really apply our mind to it, you could see these as different parts of different things, especially in trains. I remember seeing parts like these, like heavy metal parts that would be engineered to fit into trains. In the past, I remember there was some waste disposal thing that would look like that. It had a pivot on the sides, and it was the most useless dustbin in a railway cabin, but this is how it used to look. And why it was so heavily engineered, God alone knows. Then just this, something maybe out of a saw that has been cut and screwed over here, looks like teeth or a mouth. And then we have something like this also, which is just a kettle. In fact, they have done nothing to the kettle. They've not removed anything. The lid becomes the hat. Of course, the spout becomes the nose. I don't know what the handle becomes. It almost looks like a bun on a lady, maybe. And then you have the stand which is attached to the kettle that almost looks like a skirt. So the only thing they've done is attached these two, probably I'm presuming on the other side as well. two eyes and what looks almost like two wings, and we have like a bird person, something like that. So I the purpose of today's class is actually twofold. While we are making illustrations of artifacts, we can also use this opportunity to expand the theme to beyond just trying to draw an artifact verbatim. It needs to be something that can allow us to just shift reality a little bit here or there. And as of now, don't think of a purpose for this exercise. I mean, don't start thinking, where am I going to put a picture of a kettle with shoes? Don't think like that. Because creativity does not always come, or a creative idea doesn't always come from pursuing only one path. You could be on one path, but then you could just see that how you meander through that area and try to just experience different things that or ideas that come your way by constantly saying, okay, why not, what does this look like, maybe if I can change this, what else can I find that might be a little crazier, not appropriate. And that is how you start expanding your tolerance also. So, at the end of the day, I want you to be able to expand your creative thinking more than it is right now, even if it is not to make things for yourself, to be able to appreciate a lot more than you normally do. So, we're going to start off with pencil sketching, and we'll be sketching all three of them in the first half hour of class. So, till 11:45, you have to sketch all this. So, as usual, I'm going to encourage you to please do not use the eraser. It is completely pointless. Whatever shapes you're making, make them in light lines and make them in very wide strokes. So, if you want, just give me 5 minutes to show you the first sketch. I want you to observe how I hold the pencil, how much I move the book, and how I try to, it's like a very broad picture of what we want to get at. So, the first problem with many people I have found is that either you work with a pencil that is too sharp or too blunt. If your pencil is too blunt, there's a possibility that your lines will be very light, but so light that you don't see the line properly. So just do a quick twist in your sharpener so that you freshen up the graphite. If it is too sharp, it's okay, but remember to then not press too much because your first line itself becomes so dark, and often the first line is I won't say it's wrong. It's difficult for you to evaluate whether it is the right line. Okay, now looking at the object, the first thing we are going to do is evaluate what simple shape can we make out of this. And you will notice that this is nothing but just a series of cylinders that have been put one on top of the other, one next to each other, and that's about it. So we have several parallel lines and several ovals that go into each other to make these shapes. Whenever you're drawing one side, focus only on that side, not on something else. Like for example, over here, the circle or the oval seems to be much plumper, whereas over here it is much narrower. You can learn to see these shapes as transparent shapes. So for example, this is one oval. I think I'll change the. Then we have this as one oval, and they go through each other. Then you have this as one oval. This is much wider. This is taller, but it appears to be much narrower. And also it's tilted. Here is another oval. Here is another oval. So you need to learn to see these ovals in relation to each other. So you'll notice how the cross-section ovals on top are flatter The cross section ovals at the bottom are rounder, and that's because that's how perspective works. So I'm just going to draw these few lines and a few proportions, and I want you to do this just visually. For once, I'm not going to give you the proportion of how tall the object is or how short it is. Trust your eyes. So look at the angles these lines make, and you should be able to do this. I'll just take a screenshot of this and help you with that. Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that. I forgot I was alone at home. Okay, right. So first make a small sketch. Don't make a very large sketch. We're going to make only one large picture on the right. The other sketches are all going to be small. Shreya, if you're drawing, hold the book. Don't hold your head. Yeah. So in this case, you can start off with lines which are longer than you need. So here's another mistake everyone makes is holding the pencil too close to the tip and then drawing lines like this, because you might feel that that helps you control the line better. But consider holding the pencil a little far away. Draw the center line. Then you can draw an oval that is flattish. So all your lines can be multiple lines. Make them lighter. And each element of your object is proportionate to something else on the object. So like the circle over here will emerge from somewhere outside of the periphery of this shape, and so on and so forth. So notice things like this, that the base is only as wide as the edges of these two spouts over here. If you're making it any wider, then it's probably going to look wrong. And the top is only about extends outward on the right only as much as the middle of the spout on the right. So, whatever objects you have that are cut, like for example, the top has a cut, draw the entire cylinder and then make that cut. So, sketching is often, I would say, it's like riding a cycle. If you try to draw the line too slowly, chances are that your line is not going to be accurate. But if you're in the habit or if you make it a practice to draw lines rapidly, the hand does move a lot smoother. So, like I've often come across beginners who, if I ask them to draw a line straight, because a line can be very wobbly if you draw it slow, they tend to draw a line like that, just like a rapid zip line, thinking that that is going to make it go straight. That is true, but also making, especially when you're making circles, making them in a fluid movement will definitely make the circles much prettier, much stronger. Once that is made, then you can go into the depth of the actual design. So, after a sketch like that is made, it's just up to us how we want to now detail it. So, everything can then be, uh, you can make small lines and figure everything else out. Now, my strategy often is to start making the complicated bits first in the center of the picture and then move outward, because the chances of changing proportions in one direction and then everything changing, versus when you start from the center and move outward, sometimes only half the picture needs changing, has worked well for me. So now that so much is done, I can now focus on each little part of the image. Like in this case, I can make that little semicircle part like this, in which there's a hole, and then I will have a circle chain link come out. And I have drawn a double line to where that chain link is going to fit. And in this also you can make some rough lines to draw out all the chain links, and then there's a hook. So this part you can draw holding your pencil closer, because we have to draw very small lines now. Two, oh, I have extra link. Okay. Okay, now moving on to the next one. This can continue, but I want to just open up your hand a little bit to sketching. Now I'm making the little cute yellow monster. In this case now, this is purely an exercise again in just drawing straight lines in the right proportion, and you might also see a little bit of perspective happening. But I would suggest don't even bother about studying perspective in this case because it's not really very significant. However, you will notice or you will feel the need to draw something that has, I guess, how do we show something that is on the side? So if you look at it as an object that has a front and a side, then you could get a little confused. All you need to do is look for the line and the direction and the length of the line. This line is straight. This line goes, well, not straight. The first line is also slightly tilted inward. This line is straight like this, but there's a curve to it. And here, the bottom, the line curves a little upward. So don't bother with making this in perspective or anything. Just follow these lines. Now on the back, again, this what is the angle of this line, up to what point it comes. Follow just those rules and you should be fine. So in this case, identify how big your creature needs to be. It's usually in this one case it looks like the head and the body are just two separate parts. This is almost like the proportions on a newborn baby. So here's another interesting thing. We have certain associations of size and proportion with ages. So if we want to make a creature look more baby-like, you can follow the same proportions. Make short arms, big head, big eyes in the face, and that will surely look like uh, an innocent baby-like creature. And very often our perceptions can be used against us. So in horror movies often they'll do that. They'll have a creature look really cute and then they'll show it bearing its teeth, and it just like it gives you nightmares for years. But that is how I guess producers or creatives can play, use our own preconceived ideas. But you can use the same thing for, I guess, for doing good in the world. Now, I have come across many terrible looking soft toys in India because this is somebody who obviously has not gone to art school but decided that I'm going to design toys, and they come up with the most hideous proportions of head and eyes and the distance between the eyes. And I don't know how, I guess since they are meant for kids, Indian kids must have grown to be rather inert to scary movies. But I often feel that as a duty, like of social welfare, I should just partner with some soft toy maker and tell them, look, let me just give you a few tips completely free of cost to save an entire generation from some childhood trauma. So in this case, you'll notice that this face, or what looks like a face, has a big forehead, the eyes are pretty far apart, and the head is almost as large as what we assume is a small body. So when you encounter something like that, this is how you can engage with that object. What does this object remind you of, or how does it look to your eye? In that, you can use adjectives like, oh, it looks cute, or it looks young, or very childlike, whatever, because it's the very proportions in that object that are giving you that sense. So it helps to do a little study and say, could it be the shape of the head or the proportions of the eyes? It's always these same elements: shape, size, proportion, placement, and sometimes color. Any play with that, and you should be able to create a similar effect. So, even without like art college training or a degree in psychology, you should still be able to recreate a few things just from pure observation and pure engagement. So, this pareidolia is a wonderful game to play. You can do this in your homes, especially after this one exercise, also. Is literally take any bunch of objects from your studio, from your kitchen, anything, even like your dresser, and just put these random objects together to create faces and see how that looks. We need only three items really. So I could take something like I could take two objects that have a lid. So I could take this and this. And then I could take an object like this. So this could look like a face, and it already has some kind of emotion. I could now this is pretty premeditated, but what if
How
I
can
yeah, what if I do something like this? Or maybe I can
yeah,
change this and I can put this over here.
yeah,
Now even this is showing so much emotion. This
yeah,
maybe surprise, and then
yeah.
suddenly it turns to anger. Okay, so we have 10 more minutes to finish this exercise, and we can move now to the last object, that's the kettle. Now, the kettle is a combination of lots of things like cylinders, bent cylinders. We've already done a little bit of that with the lock, and I guess a series of ovals but turned into a pot. So, in this case, I often start off with a circle or an oval that would be the largest. Here, in this case, would be the belly of the teapot. And as far as the spout is concerned, don't bother making that curve. First, make just the vertical lines. So you have the vertical lines of the neck of the teapot, and then from there, the spout would emerge in this form. These lines are much easier to make. So, as far as possible, bring everything down to uh, the lowest common denominator or multiple. What is it? Lowest common multiple, which is just the line or a shape that has uniformity: circle, equilateral triangle, or a square. I can't help but draw a parallel between this and Vedic maths. I wish we were taught Vedic maths in school. I feel so regretted. For simple calculations, how much Magatmari we have had to do. You just need to come to uh, the closest decimal, 10 decimal or something like that, and all calculations become much easier from there. So this is the shape that I have before I start embellishing it. So pretty much like the fire hydrant, even here it's just these basic shapes, placement of all the objects. And here's another thing also, feel free to draw certain lines like the center line running through an object to give you distances and directions of some of the items, like where would the wing be, where exactly should you place it on the body. And once you're satisfied with this shape, you can start modifying that.
The world was unfair, no one could save me but you. It's strange what desire will make foolish people do. I never dreamed that I'd meet somebody like you. I never dreamed that I'd lose somebody like you. Now I wanna fall in love. Now I wanna fall in love with you. With you. What a wicked game you play to make me feel this way. What a wicked thing to do to make me dream of you. What a wicked thing to say. I never felt this way. What a wicked thing to do to make me dream of you.
Okay, 5 minutes more.
Fall in love.
After that, we are going to choose any one of these objects and redraw them in a larger size to paint. I'll be drawing this yellow robot.
With you.
One, because it has got simple shapes and we can most likely finish that in the next 45 minutes. But if you feel that there's some other object you want to take on, please do so. Especially because in doing that during class, if you feel I can help you out with certain problems, then that would be better than when if you have to tackle those problems by yourself at home when you're trying to redo this exercise.
All around, wake up lonely, stare of silence in the bedroom, and all around, touch me now. I close my eyes and dream away. It must have been love, but it's over now. It must have been good, but I lost it somehow. It must have been love, but it's over now. From the moment we touched till the time had run out.
So in the case of the feet, make the lid that's in the foreground first, and then the one in the background. And here again, you'll notice how I think this had happened in our wooden box. It's the same principle that the front will look rounder, the front of the same foot will look rounder, and the back of that foot will look shallower. Just like this, it's the same principle. So it may not be one full oval, it could be a combination of a flat oval on top and a rounded oval at the bottom.
It must have been good, but I lost it somehow. It must have been long, but it's over now. From the moment we touched till the time I'd run out.
क्या गिरा? Oh, that from the khirki I heard.
Okay, so since I have just 2 minutes more, I'm going to show you. After you've done the drawing, do practice a little bit of shading as well. Shading practice is the best way to get your hand really, really strong. This quick sketching with just fingers, it's like doing crunches. Shreya, hold the book.
I'm so sorry, I've gotten into this habit of.
I know it's okay, don't apologize because this is just a new requirement, a new habit. I might be telling you this very frequently, don't feel bad. So in time it won't matter what you hold when you're drawing. But in the beginning, when our hand is heavy, if it's not holding the paper, the same hand that is drawing is subconsciously trying to hold the paper as well, and our hand can become very cumbersome. So keeping your hand on the paper just allows you to keep your movement very flexible. Oh, I forgot the handle altogether. That's how I had time.
Stars fading, but I linger on thee, still craving your kiss. I'm longing to linger till dawn, just saying this.
Okay, how are your sketches looking? Does your hand feel warmed up a little bit? Oh, nice. Janita is looking good. How cute. Very nice. Okay, good. Elaine, you could have made yours a little bigger. Shreya, yours also. But now you know. So the next time you start a picture, just use your fingers to decide how big you can make. Even I could have made mine slightly bigger.
But Aditi, I really didn't use an eraser, so I'm really happy with that.
Wow.
Yeah. I made mistakes. I mean, but they weren't so bad that I could kind of. There are bits sticking out here and there, but it was something else not to use an eraser, especially for this top thing, this top hydrant.
Yeah.
I thought if I could manage that without an eraser, I've come some way along.
Yeah, there will be a day when you feel comfortable enough to just push yourself to do it. And today was that day. Great.
Last class was not that day.
Correct. So it's okay. Whatever it is, whenever it happens, it happens. Yeah, very nice, Bhavani.
I think I was doing a lot of calligraphy all morning. That must have warmed up my hand.
Ah,
That's why now I could, just draw much better because of that.
wow, that's great. I didn't realize. Yeah, that's possible.
Any warming up, it's like, you said pencil yoga. Well,
Yeah,
that was what was happening since
yeah,
9:30 in the morning. So
cool. All right, so now we are going to scale up the yellow robot and we're going to make a painting of that. So a little bit of, again, it's going to be like a little bit of the metal, but so technique and some color involved. But again, we are going to practice not to try to illustrate it exactly as we see it, but create an impression of it in our heads and translate that into watercolor. All right. So now again, use your fingers to figure out how you want the object to be. The head and the body is pretty much the same size. What if you make it till here? Does that work? Yes, it does. Once you get this size, you just make a mark like this and proceed. I'm holding the book a little at an angle because I'm looking at my screen that's in front of me and I'm drawing looking down. So often my pictures become a little distorted. Later, I'm going to show you a project that I'm working on right now, the portraits project. They've turned out really nice. I want to show you how that's looking as well. Only pencil portraits for a family in Delhi. They wanted this for a wedding in the family.
I just can't get you out of my head. Oh, your loving is all I think about. I just can't get you out of my head. Oh, it's more than I get to think about. La la la, la 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 la. I just can't get you out of my head. Oh, your loving is all I think about. I just can't get you out of my head. Oh, it's more than I dare to think about. Every night, every day, just to be there in your arms. Won't you stay? Won't you stay forever and
Now for this one, you can use an eraser afterwards because this is no longer just sketching. We have to execute this like a final illustration. But even then, finish making all the lines and especially if you feel one line has gone wrong, like in my case I think the head became a little too short, so I changed that and then I'm using an eraser to clean that up so that I don't get confused, but my corrected line has already been made. Sometimes if you don't do that, then you will keep making you'll erase and keep making the same line in the same place. I think it's because your brain is telling you that is where the line should be. That's why you made the line there in the first place. And unless you prove it to the brain that that is not true, it will keep insisting that that is where your line should go. Now, sometimes it'll happen that if you are not sure whether your illustration is right, if everything is in the right place because you think it is, but it's still not looking like your reference image, I recommend walk away from your painting for about 5 minutes. Look at something else and then come back to that and see what you see. When we are engaged in one subject for too long, we get so attached to the object that the details become meaningless to us. And by attached, I don't mean that we are emotionally attached. We are just too familiar with all the elements that go into that illustration. When we look at something else and we come back, it freshes up our eyes a little bit and our objectivity returns. So you will definitely see everything differently.
Are you high enough to excuse that I'm moving? 'Cause I'm moving. Is it late enough for you to come and stay over? 'Cause we're free to love, so tease me. Oh, oh. I'll make no promises, I can't do golden rings, but I'll give you everything tonight. Magic is in the air, there ain't no science here, so come get your everything tonight.
Even when you're drawing the base of the toy, make the base flat first and then cut the indent into it. You will definitely get better proportions.
I'm heating up, energy's taking control. I'm speeding up, my heartbeat stands in low.
So we are not going to do this topic this year, but if you have any of these hardware at home, or if you can find them or pictures of them, attempt these as well. These hardware tools like nuts and bolts, pliers, they are a very, very interesting topic. Part of it is because there is so much geometry to them. They rely heavily on just because they're mechanical tools, on very regular shapes, like you'll notice about these nuts. So they can be very fun to draw. And like, I suppose I can't help but use the word nutcase. It's a nice way to study. I mean, just logic. If this is the nut you're making, avoid drawing your hexagon like this from one side to the other. Divide this. Just draw parallel lines 3 ways. That is what nuts are. That's how you get a hexagon. So then after you have done this, then just make rounded edges. Even for that, if you want, you can always first make straight line across the center of that side and then round the edges. Just, it's a very subtle round. It's not like a roundabout round. And the inside will be like I showed you. One side is like this, the other side, draw it separately, and then you can draw the 3D from the inside, and whichever side you're drawing an additional 3-dimensional shape, the exact opposite side you will draw the three-dimensional outer shape, which would also just be this hexagon. That's in a nutshell. Okay, alright, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to finish up your sketches, and I'm going to go get some water for painting. Alright, shall we start painting? Okay, now again for painting, I hope all of you have a rag handy. If you don't, please get it. Just paint, water and brushes are insufficient. You must have a rag to control the volume of your painting, of your paint, of your medium. Okay. Now, looking at our little robot, there are so many different textures to it, lots of different colors. The body and the head obviously is yellow and maybe raw umber, a little bit of burnt sienna or burnt umber also, a few red spots here and there. So we are not going to try and replicate this the way it is. We are not expected to make these shapes exactly the way that is a different kind of excuse me, hyper realistic watercolor painting. At some point we may do it, but right now that's not the goal. What we do want to do is show the vibrancy and also the age and vintage of the character, let's say. So we need a lot of colors to mix around and merge, and this merge can be very organic. It does not have to be too more than a certain amount decided. So the top part, of course, as we put in the yellows, we will also put in a little bit of raw umber and let the wet on wet do its thing. Then for the grays of the face, we will take a light warm gray that will be the mix of blue, burnt umber, and black, and give a wash to the ears, mouth, eyes, and the arms. And then we will keep building on that a little bit with texture and a little bit with just brush strokes. So yeah, so let's take some gamboge. I'm going to add just a little bit of orange to that to create some vibrancy. As much as we have the original hue of the color, like the nature of the color, each color also has the ability to change the personality of another color, especially if they are colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. Okay, I've taken out a little bit of raw umber as well. This color we use very rarely, but this is a very nice shade that just lends a personality, sometimes a maturity to other colors. We'll tackle the gray later. So first job is to just create a wash. Hold your book slightly tilted. In as much as we want the robot to have a very rusted look, it should not look like a out of control texture like we often get when we get puddles in the paint. So notice how far I'm holding the brush so that I can make long strokes, and holding the book just at a tilt of even 20 degrees or so will help flow this color down just with gravity. So a little bit of yellow has stayed at the bottom, and this will give me that dark shadow at the bottom that I want. This entire space. It will also dry up the last. Now as I'm bringing the yellow color down on the body, I'm going to start including a little bit of uh, raw umber into this application as I come down. So already on the base coat, I'm going to have raw umber. The same raw umber we can also add to the top with very brief strokes like this while the color is still wet. So to get a nice stroke, you can just press the brush down like that and keep wiping the brush so that it's not too uh, dense or too thick with color. And at this stage, while the paint might still be wet, you can make random dots on the edges also. A little bit of burnt sienna can be added to, or even light red can be added to the raw umber, and I'm putting that color just above the mouth lids. So now, in fact, the raw sienna can also go as a wash on the metal parts. So this is what I mean by not necessarily focusing so much on making the picture too accurate. There is a little bit of red on the dark metal as well. So you just need to be careful not to apply that very close to the yellow in certain places, but in other places you can definitely make some washes with this combination of light red and raw umber. The only thing that you should keep in mind are the highlights. There's very little compromising. So if you do see a highlight, don't paint over there. If you are painting very light, then suppose you miss out on a highlight, it won't matter. We can always go back and paint around it and make it look much deeper. Okay, this is still wet. I'm adding a few more strokes.
Saw you dancing in a crowded room. You look so happy when I'm not with you. Then you saw me, caught you by surprise. A single tear falling from your eye. I don't know why I run away. I'll make you cry. I run away. Could have asked me why I broke your heart. Could have told.
Just 1 second.
I made you think that I would always say. I said some things that I should never say. I broke your heart like someone did to mine. And now you won't love me for a second time.
Okay, so I want you to see how a light colored patch looks. This is something that I think everyone encounters when you're trying to do a nice wash and then you go back and correct and then something like that happens, but that looks so good where you want to show flaky paint or a little bit of rust showing. These cloudy edges along the sides of this paint will look wonderful. Right, so once this is done, at some point we will use some spray. So if you've got a toothbrush or something handy, that's good, or maybe a brush like that which we can dip and then make some spray, but that'll be at the end. Right, the next step, let's move on to a medium sized brush. And now in the chaos of the colors that usually we have in the palette, find a deep blue gray color, a warm blue gray color. This is a combination of God knows what, red and cerulean blue and burnt umber and everything together. Now I enjoy making a gray out of these leftovers because it's always a surprise, and you can get so many. In this you start seeing some of the shades that you would not have otherwise seen. This color needs to be a little thicker than wash consistency, and now we are going to start applying the dark shades to the ears and the arms. Remember to leave a few places uncolored, or even the mouth, sorry. It's still a very translucent shade. In every place, wherever you start seeing a highlight, now from subsequent layers, start dodging around the highlights. Okay, now here, instead of using the same color over and over, this is what I normally do. I change the color a little bit. Since this is a gray mixed with all these shades, I could just dip into more blue in the next application. So this section would have a little blue here, or even maybe a cerulean, oh no, what is this? Viridian green. Because after all, it's like a multicolored gray. I can see a little bit of green in this as well. I've added a little more cerulean to the gray parts. See how much the painting brightens up because of that. So for the shadows on the eyes, I have used more a cerulean than a dark grey color. Now all these weird shapes that I've got, I can correct them by using like a thicker dark shade. In this case, I've just taken that blue and mixed it with black, or a black that was in the palette itself. There's so much water here that all of it is going to blend. So I'm using a thin brush at this stage because I want this controlled. With a medium sized brush, I can also take a little bit of that reddish, light red and gamboge color and give a little shadow on the left. It's going to be partly reddish. This color is probably going to run. Let's see how it goes. Ah, beautiful. So there's a little highlight on the frontish edge, and then there's a shadow just along the edge over here. When you are painting this, I hope you are using different parts of the brush. It's not just the tip. Sometimes you have to press the brush like this, where you want very light colors to appear. Sometimes you use the tip where you want sharp shapes to appear. We do not use the brush like we use pen or pencil. It's multifaceted, literally. So in the time that your painting is wet and you have to wait, sometimes you can look for opportunities to create these happy if you consciously do it, I don't think it becomes an accident anymore. It's something like that. Now just below the teeth, there is a little extra shadow or an extra warm yellow colored shadow. So I'm making a second round of this color, but I'm going to be painting that with a medium sized brush. And to this I'll again add a little bit of orange to deepen that shade a little bit. It's significantly more orange than before. But when I'm blending this, I'm going to put the fresh color only on top here. I want you to see this. Everything else around it is colored. Pull this down as if we make a wash. Then wipe the brush, wash away the color, and use a damp brush which has clean water and pull this down as if it were a wash by pressing the brush down. Very gently. So I managed to give myself a nice deep color over there, but I also pull this color down with just plain water. The danger in the plain water is that you will get a light patch like I'm beginning to get over here. So you have to do this very carefully. And worst case scenario, you can always blend it back with the original gamboge color, whichever original color there is. So you get a second coat in with more personality. And then repeat the same process of inserting a deep color towards the base. So between the first layer and the second layer, your colors usually blend much better. These colors again are much more vibrant towards the foreground and not so much along the side, you'll notice. So keep that side unpainted in the second round and automatically you'll get a highlight there. I'm going to turn the book around and make the color on the face also just as vibrant. So second wash.
Yesterday you told me about the blue, blue sky and all that I can see, and all that I can see, and all that I can see is just a yellow lemon tree.
Okay, while you're painting all this, I'm going to add a few more samples of junk art.
In a straight line, that's not really her style. They all got the same heartbeat, but hers is falling behind. Nothing in this world could ever bring them down. Yet they're invincible, and she's just in the background. And she says, I wish that I could be like the cool kids, 'cause all the cool kids, they seem to fit in. I wish that I could be like the cool kids, like the cool,
How's it going?
cool kids.
I have to wait till my color dries, so that's I'm just checking in on all of you. Nice.
He sees them talking
Let me just pin it, Janita.
they haven't got a clue.
Wait, hold it up, hold it up.
Yet they're living
Nice. Okay, have you given
see what he
second coat to the top as well, the head, or just the,
They're driving fast
or
cars,
even the body? Have you given a
they know
second
where
coat
they're
or just one?
going.
Two coats?
In the
Okay.
fast lane, living life without knowing. And he says, I wish that I
Oh, so cute, Bhavani. That's very cute.
kids, 'cause all the cool
Nice.
kids, they seem to fit in. I wish that I could
I
be.
messed up his mouth a bit in one bit and one arm.
Oh, really?
It just kind of spread that,
Yes.
the tooth. Yeah, the tooth is not, it spread the color there. So I'm afraid that end is a bit,
No, that's okay. Because
it got all
anyway, we
melted.
need it to be like a rusty metal thing, so that
But
works.
his teeth, he only got two front teeth instead of three.
I didn't even notice.
That's what blended together.
That's very nice. Nice, Shreya. So cute. Okay. So at this point now, most of the colors are in. As you can see, my colors are fairly light, especially this, the what is supposed to be the dark color. So I prefer to keep this, the darker shades light, and then add more shadows and contrast. Of course, I can make the darker metal much darker. But at this point, I have the option to only make select items darker using that gray that we make. That's cobalt blue or ultramarine blue, or both, burnt umber and black. I think I should just call it my gray now. So I don't know if you noticed that the metal is slightly a warmer gray on the teeth and a cooler gray on the arms. Now over here there is no dimension, but I could draw that. I could leave a highlight in some sections, like over here there's a shadow. So here I can make a nice sharp dark edge. I will eventually put a black, pure black there as well. And then there is, of course, there's a nut here and here, which I'll make in detail later. And then the front. is a gray wash as well. And there's a small, very tiny highlight over there, which is white actually, but I have left it just a little less dark than the front. So in making this translucent gray color, I allow for a lot of the personality of the background to literally shine through. And in this, sometimes you can just make brush strokes which are more made in such a way that the highlights are what get left behind. So there's a slight light patch on the left, so I'll just leave it like that, like deliberately neglectful brush strokes. And again, while the paint is still wet, in a few areas add a dark shade like the black. So just at the bottom edge, in a few places, I could add this. And use its wetness to let it flow, so you don't have to actively blend anything. That's a wonderful effect.
Day to night to morning, keep with me the moment. I let you head unknown it.
The color on the ears, I think, is a little less warm, so it's slightly bluer. And there too, there are sections of darkness. So there's something that's close to the face, which I'll darken.
You ain't coming down your show. You ain't really been yourself. Tell me what must I do to tell my love? Luckily I'm good at reading.
Again, I've washed the brush and I'm blending this gray in to get that light effect.
Dance all day around it. If you run,
So I get a nice highlight here. And I happen to have a nice highlight on the left side, and I don't want to change that, so I will just make a dark border with black halfway up this edge.
I let you head unnoticed. Why don't you say so? Didn't even notice. No punches left to roll with. You got to keep me focused. You wanna say so.
I'm using a little bit of the same color with a thin brush now to make the shadow and the dark shade on the side. Now we can also use a blue to make this sharp shadow.
Feeling my way through the darkness, guided by a beating heart. I can tell where to turn.
Okay, now I will continue with the rest also and make the same thing, make it darker. But unfortunately, I can't extend the class too long. So let us try that splatter thing. If you have any spare paper, uh, graph paper, maybe just some envelope to protect part of your page, keep that, and use a slightly thickish anything that can spring back this way. And hopefully you're not wearing white because there will be splatter. And take some, start with maybe blue or burnt umber. No, I've never used this brush before, but let's see. God, I'm painting like such a darpok. I don't even know which side I have to do this. Okay. I'll do it the other way around. I'll just take a round brush and splatter this way. Yeah, this is much better. I'm more comfortable with this. So use a paint which has a lot of water. Don't use a very thick paint. Now again, in this case, we are not trying to create the exact same dots in the same place, but take some multiple colors and just make lots of splatter like effect. And some of it obviously is going to splatter all around the page. Let it do that. It will still look good.
Yeah, it's quite uncontrollable, this splatter thing.
Yeah, never
It's
mind.
all over the place.
It's okay. It will lighten up. I mean, just give us the texture that we need. So after the splatter dries, I'm going to make some parts even darker. So you will see, I'll take a picture at this stage and then I'll show you a picture at a later stage because I still want other features, the features to stand out even more. But I'm usually very cautious in painting darker shades. So I will wait and wait and wait and keep adding layers patiently. Because I sometimes there are these color blends which are so cool you don't want to lose them, and that often happens in the first or second layer. So uske baad then there are some places that I won't even make dark. I just keep them light. They will look nice, but I will have to give some like dimensional shading to that. So I'll just add a little shadow to one side or another, and that's like a compromise.
So the lesson is not to go dark in the beginning, not to take the exact shade in the beginning. It was
Right.
thin paint, but a darker shade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, keep it light and keep the light shades going in multiple layers over and over and over again. So while we can finish this in one sitting of 90 minutes, take extra time if you need to. Just finish up to certain layers, go back, and once in a while, uh, just let go of the end and put in the dark colors, but not in the first three layers.
Yeah.
So you will know how much was enough.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now we may have the class next week,
Okay.
but if we don't, then we will have the class on Wednesday, I think, right? On the
No,
27th.
Thursday on the 28th.
Thursday 28th. Okay. Yes, all right, I'll note it down. Okay, so any case if I'm not going and we have the class next week, let's just have it. Let's just, I guess, pocket that extra session that we have done
We
last.
had planned for a Thursday class this week. Are we going to have that instead of the next week, Tuesday?
We don't need to because this month
Ah,
we will already have finished four classes. So
right.
it can be on the Thursday that's day after tomorrow,
Or then when
Or
you
it
get,
can be the Thursday of the 28th. So I
yeah,
would prefer the 28th because there
yeah,
are other things that are happening, right?
okay,
Okay. All right.
perfect.
Okay, cool. I'll see you
You
all.
have a good trip, and
Thank you. Thank you.
are you here Friday?
Friday, I should be here. Yeah, I'm leaving either Sunday or on Wednesday. We're
Okay,
still looking for participants. We're not getting enough participants for the
okay,
workshops. So,
okay,
in that case, I might change my plans and go on Wednesday.
done.
All
Oh,
right. Okay, then. Bye, everyone.
bye bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a good trip.